Hello everybody, it's me, GhostCritic, and what a great week of comics this has been. And here I am with my comic book review video to let you know why they were so good this week. I live for comic book weeks like this where pretty much every single title that I picked up just filled me with joy and just invigorated the passion and the love that I have for comic books. Even the ones that weren't that great were still, enjoyable, and what comics are meant to do, entertain me. So there are 8-9 books this week, so I'm going to rattle these off very quickly, or as quickly as I can, because you know how much I love to ramble. Just to pre-warn anyone who's new to this channel, there will be spoilers. So if you see a comic book written aloft and you haven't read it yet, stop the video, go and read it, come back, or just fast forward it and go on to the next one until you can get round to reading your comic books, because I wouldn't want to spoil anything for you. Now, I'm going to kick off with issue number 40 of Joshua Williamson's The Flash. And again, as much as I enjoyed this, it's full of action, superhero fun, obviously from a book called Flash and him being the fastest superhero. It's very kind of quick paced, and Joshua Williamson along with I always get this wrong, Giandomenico. They both have this kind of symbiosis with each other and really kind of make this book move at a pace it should be going. However, this storyline, which has basically taken 2 issues to tell, feels a little bit dovetailed in to get to the cliffhanger, or kind of the denouement of this particular part of Barry Allen's life. And that is that, again, spoilers, by the end of this issue, Barry loses completely his Flash powers. And I guess in a way this has been kind of leading up to this point to a degree. But like I said, the insertion of Gorilla Grodd on here, I was really excited for, but it seems to be such a throwaway moment. And like I said, it's been inserted, or he has been inserted as a plot point to take Barry's powers off him and let Wally West become the Flash of this DC universe that we have here. And that's what I'm presuming is going to go from here on as this Flash title. It's no longer Barry, it's now Wally. That is, if he will continue to take on that mantle. So there are bits missing, and that's why I feel a little bit about this particular issue. We learn that Gorilla Grodd has this kind of degenerative mental disease, and apparently the only way to cure it is if he takes Barry's speed force off him, and that's why he's got with this this raging guy, this Lord of Lightning, and the I always forget what they're called, the black science people. I can never remember what they're called, because again they're kind of one of those groups that are used to just maneuver things along. No, I can't find it, but that doesn't matter. Like I said, by the end of this issue, it's kind of like a new era for the Flash. I'm not sure what or how Joshua Williamson is going to move this forward. Like I said, we don't even know if Wally is going to accept the fact that he is now the Flash, and he's not kind of just a legacy character of the DC universe pushed into the forefront of this particular title. Again, people were crazy that Wally West wasn't included in the New 52, and it took to Rebirth to get him back. So quite a number of years passed past without him being in the DC universe. And like I said, everyone apparently screamed about it. I was happy for it to be Barry, but we've now got Wally. The artwork, like I said, is really good in here. It fits the Flash. It's very fast paced, it's very kinetic, it's very bright and brash, and it does the job. Next up, X-Men Blue, issue number 21 from Cullen Bunn. And what is wrong with this comic book at the moment? Because there's something that's just not right. As much as I love it when, especially Marvel superheroes, go off into space and have their adventures, there is something about this one that just doesn't sit right. And I think because there's too much comparisons to, especially in this particular storyline, where they're on this planet, which is a bit sketchy. It feels very Star Warsy. They're in this cantina. You've got this multitude of different kind of aliens all kind of drinking at the bar. And it just feels a little cliched, for want of a better word. We've got these Venom villains come into it, and of course there's a big fight. Another problem I have with this issue is the young version of Cyclops. And Cyclops has never been one of my favourite Marvel characters, especially within the X-Team. I've always kind of disliked the way he's been used. And he seems to be morphing into the kind of present day grown up version of him, where he kind of throws himself in, he lets his emotions take over rather than be the leader he's meant to be, and keep the group together, think with his head instead of his heart. Yes, he wants to find his father, he wants to rescue him, but he has a team there that has that he has to kind of protect and look after at the same time. But he forgets about all this, and of course that is his downfall, and he gets shot and kind of mortally wounded, which has to happen because it's Cyclops and we need to ramp up the danger just that little bit more. And so they have to escape from these Venom villains, but at the same time continue their search for Scott's father. And through this kind of adventure that they're having, through their escape, they find that there is this kind of dealer of Venom symbiotes, and obviously he's charging the top dollar for these versions of symbiotes. And they crash in, and of course everything explodes, and all these symbiotes get loose, and who do they attack and take over? Of course, it's the X-Men team. The young displaced teenagers get venomized. So how this is going to play, no idea what Cullen Bunn's got in store in here. The actual main Venom, our regular Venom character, I'm still very confused about who's in control, who's kind of the good and the bad part of Venom, because the actual symbiote to me seems like it wants to do good, wants a kind of redemption, for want of a better phrase, for all the bad that it's done in the past. But then you've got what's his name? I want to say Brent. Oh, what is it called? Eddie Brock. I was going to say, Eddie Brock. I don't know what I was going to say, but Eddie Brock seems to be the villain and doesn't want to help out. And so you have this inner monologue between the two, but I'm kind of confused by all that. So is a Venom going to come to the X-Men's rescue? Well, we'll have to see in the next issue. But like I said, something missing. Can't quite put my finger on it, but there you have it. Let's move on to Doctor Strange, issue 385, and the final part of this Loki Sorcerer Supreme storyline, where we had at the end of the last issue the kind of alter evil ego of the Sentry that has been trapped behind a magical door by Stephen Strange. The Void has escaped and is wreaking havoc while Stephen and Loki are basically fighting each other for the title of Sorcerer Supreme. Now, I don't know whether it was because this was so action-packed, this was so fast-paced, but I kind of missed a few points here, or I got a bit confused about what is now the status quo, because to me it feels like magic's back. Something that was inside Zelma, his kind of new apprentice, who has been alongside Loki for the last few issues of this storyline. She had some magical thing inside her. I think it was kind of like, I guess, a kill switch or something like that, or something that if the worst happened, he could pull it out of her and fix everything. But I was left very confused by the end of this. As much as I enjoyed this, because I love the Marvel Magic universe, especially when Doctor Strange is involved, I was just left a little lost. I'm hoping, I know it sounds awful, but Gabriel Hernandez Walter's artwork is not my favourite, and I think his artwork kind of drowns out the great Jordie Bellaire's colours on here. Jordie Bellaire colouring just about everything, it seems, currently, and you can always tell it's a Jordie Bellaire because the colours are so nice to look at. They're so, perfect for the books that she goes and creates and adds to. But there's something about Walter's artwork that just drowns it all out. There is some great parts in this, don't get me wrong. I love the kind of, at the end of this, where they kind of like put down the Void and get him back imprison him again. We kind of find out that this whole competition that Stephen Strange lost to Loki for the title of Sorcerer Supreme was all a big illusion by Loki. I mean, he is the god of mischief, and he's never going to win, but it's all the excuses he comes out with that even he doesn't believe, and it's a nice little humorous touch towards the end of this book that just kind of lifts this title and makes it that a little bit better than it probably should be. It's great. Donny Cates is doing a great job on this. I can understand why people like his work, especially his independent work, a great deal, but he's doing just as good a job here on one of the big two books. Damnation is coming. I don't really know where that's all going to happen or what's going to come from it, but I'm on board for it. As I've said in previous videos, that I'm going to pick up the mini-series and this book, the Doctor Strange book, because obviously this is on my pull list anyway. I don't know if it bleeds into any other titles, but I won't be picking them up. I'd just like to see a different artist on here. Belair can stay as the colourist because they are great. Donny Cates can stay because he's writing a good solid story. But let's get rid of Gabriel Hernandez Walter. I'm sorry. Let's move on to Doctor Strange, issue 385, and the final part of this Loki Sorcerer Supreme storyline, where we had at the end of the last issue the kind of alter evil ego of the Sentry that has been trapped behind a magical door by Stephen Strange. The Void has escaped and is wreaking havoc while Stephen and Loki are basically fighting each other for the title of Sorcerer Supreme. Now, I don't know whether it was because this was so action-packed, this was so fast-paced, but I kind of missed a few points here, or I got a bit confused about what is now the status quo, because to me it feels like magic's back. Something that was inside Zelma, his kind of new apprentice, who has been alongside Loki for the last few issues of this storyline. She had some magical thing inside her. I think it was kind of like, I guess, a kill switch or something like that, or something that if the worst happened, he could pull it out of her and fix everything. But I was left very confused by the end of this. As much as I enjoyed this, because I love the Marvel Magic universe, especially when Doctor Strange is involved, I was just left a little lost. I'm hoping, I know it sounds awful, but Gabriel Hernandez Walter's artwork is not my favourite, and I think his artwork kind of drowns out the great Jordie Bellaire's colours on here. Jordie Bellaire colouring just about everything, it seems, currently, and you can always tell it's a Jordie Bellaire because the colours are so nice to look at. They're so, you know, perfect for the books that she goes and creates and adds to. But there's something about Walter's artwork that just drowns it all out. There is some great parts in this, don't get me wrong. I love the kind of, at the end of this, where they kind of like put down the Void and get him back imprison him again. We kind of find out that this whole competition that Stephen Strange lost to Loki for the title of Sorcerer Supreme was all a big illusion by Loki. I mean, he is the god of mischief, and he's never going to win, but it's all the excuses he comes out with that even he doesn't believe, and it's a nice little humorous touch towards the end of this book that just kind of lifts this title and makes it that a little bit better than it probably should be. It's great. Donny Cates is doing a great job on this. I can understand why people like his work, especially his independent work, a great deal, but he's doing just as good a job here on one of the big two books. Damnation is coming. I don't really know where that's all going to happen or what's going to come from it, but I'm on board for it. As I've said in previous videos, that I'm going to pick up the mini-series and this book, the Doctor Strange book, because obviously this is on my pull list anyway. I don't know if it bleeds into any other titles, but I won't be picking them up. I'd just like to see a different artist on here. Bellaire can stay as the colourist because they are great. Donny Cates can stay because he's writing a good solid story. But let's get rid of Gabriel Hernandez Walter. I'm sorry. It's issue 221 of The Punisher, and the next part of Punisher War Machine by Matt Rosenberg. And you know me and The Punisher, I love this title. Now that Matt Rosenberg is on the book, he's doing our Frank Castle some well-deserved justice, giving him a good meaty storyline. The end of last issue, we saw him knocked down by a bunch of Iron Men suits and dropped into the ocean. Fortunately, he's caught by a passing fisherman boat, and again, he's off to get closer at finding Petrov. The big kind of climax, I guess, to this issue is now Petrov has he has the codes, or he has he basically has nuclear weapons now, and he's going to set them off unless the Punisher leaves the country and lets him continue running it how he wishes to in his very dictatorship way. But obviously Punisher isn't going to back down from a job. Nick Fury even kind of makes out that, you know, it's time to go, but Punisher isn't having it, and he kind of, as usual, he's kind of pushing Petrov out of hiding, by again taking over, blowing up, you know, all the good stuff of all his bases, and killing as he does. It's just what you expect from the Punisher. It's what I want from the Punisher, and Matt Rosenberg is doing a great job here. The artist Villanova with Lee Lowridge on the colours, doing a fine job for this book, keeping the pace going, the grimness, the violence, all that stuff that you expect from a Punisher title is there. Just a great book. I love the Punisher when it's like this. David Lapham's Stray Bullets, issue number 32. And just like I said on Wednesday, when you open a title, any title of Stray Bullets, you never know where it's going to go, and I didn't expect this at all. We start off with Orson and Beth and the other woman driving off. They're trying to escape from the bad guys who they've stolen the drugs and the money from. Kind of find somewhere to lie low. But Beth, it looks as though she's had enough. I think she thrives. Well, she does. She thrives on the danger and the excitement and the risk taking, and the idea, I guess, of lying low and basically doing nothing and keeping quiet kind of almost repulses her. But at the same time, it feels like she's trying to keep Orson safe, as basically she pushes him away. She says, look, this is over between us. It was never going to last. It's time for you to leave. And from then on, this is kind of the story of Orson going back home, but finding nowhere. He doesn't fit in anymore. And he comes across a character that we saw way back when they first stole all the money and all the drugs. And that was one of the prostitutes from the brothel that they stole all the drugs and money from, who helped them out. It didn't go so well for her, despite the fact that Orson gave her some money for all the thanks for helping them out. And basically she's working in a donut shop now, and she's got quite the beaten up face now. And you kind of get them having a heart-to-heart. Initially they are very much at each other's throats, especially obviously the woman, because her life has basically been ruined, as if it could be ruined more than being used as what's basically a sex slave by the kind of the bad guys. But now she's working a very dull job, earning minimum wage, and you know, kind of having to live from week to week on the money she makes there. But by the end of the book, they kind of have an affinity for each other. They open up to each other. They're kind of, Orson's kind of split personality that he has is kind of looked into and given more depth to, and it feels like it's a real thing. And you know, the fact that Orson really is the kind of timid, he would never get involved in this kind of craziness, but just the fact that he puts on a moustache, drinks lots of vodka and does lots of drugs, suddenly turns him into this badass. And it's just a lovely kind of screwed up story about these two coming together and dealing with, you know, their own particular problems and hang-ups. And it was just a great story. Who knows, you know, how this is going to go for Orson? Are we going to follow him now, or has he kind of almost cleaned himself up, both kind of mentally and physically, to go back to his own life? Are we then going to just go back to Beth and her crazy risk-taking adventures? Who knows? It's David Lapham, but I will just lap every little bit of this book up. Great book. If you're not reading Stray Bullets, start picking it up. Get the trades. You're in for a wild, wild ride. And here we go with Marvel's Marvel 2-in-1. It's The Thing and the Human Torch, issue number 3 from Chip Zdarsky, and this is such a great book. One of the highlights in the Marvel fold that's kind of not necessarily come out of nowhere, but you wouldn't think it would be as good as it is, not being a kind of forefront runner in the kind of Marvel stable of comic titles. But it's great. And the thing that Chip Zdarsky is doing is he's bringing in elements of the Fantastic Four, which we're all waiting for a new volume of that title to come out, bringing Reed Richards, bringing Susan Storm back into the Marvel Universe. Kids along with them, who cares, as long as we get the Fantastic Four back. But we're dealing with these two guys, we're dealing with Ben and we're dealing with Johnny, who's Johnny's powers are a little bit on the fritz at the moment, and they're looking for this scientist who can supposedly help out and basically fix him. And then they can go off searching for the other members of the Fantastic Four, which we're not really sure whether they are still alive or not. We have the Thing who, from the message that they had from the kind of glowy ball that they found in the last issue, seems to suggest that they are dead. But he's not letting Johnny know this, so they can go on adventures, kind of, it sounds weird, but cheer Johnny up, get him back to being the superhero he should be. We throw in Hercules here, and he's always hilarious when you stick him into a book as fun as this. You kind of get the lighter side of Hercules, the kind of bombastic teller of tales. But once they find this kind of hidden scientist's base, I guess you'd call it, she's kind of morally ambiguous. She's not only kind of assisting heroes in their powers and getting them back, but also villains as well, as Hydra Man turns up, and that all goes, as you can see, lots of water. It's going to be a fight between these guys. But obviously in the background, I've mentioned the Mad Thinker is in this book. Doom wants to know why the Thinker is so sure that Reed Richards is still alive, and what he is actually doing about it. And then, of course, the craziness that is the Mad Thinker. He basically wants to be Reed Richards. And you have this great final panel of the Mad Thinker basically turning himself visually into kind of an evil Reed Richards, right down to kind of like the white stripes and hair at the side of his face. And it's just a rollicking good ride. I just can't wait for another issue and another issue of this. I said on Wednesday that I read that Chip Zdarsky said this is written up to issue 12. I would love to think that by issue 12 we have the Fantastic Four back, and that's when a new volume of Fantastic Four is going to come back. Who knows what Chip Zdarsky's got for the future, but I'm on board 100%. So the last 3 books that I'm going to talk about this week all come from the same publishing house, and it's no surprise that it is Image Comics, because they put out such good books, and these 3 just blew me away. The level of storytelling and the surprises that they bring along the way, it's just amazing. I'm going to kick off. It was difficult to put these 3 in any semblance of order and then get a pick of the week, but I did it. But any one of these 3 could have been my pick of the week, to be honest. I'm going to kick off with Kill or Be Killed, issue number 16. Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips and Elizabeth Breitweiser continue to knock it out the park. this book just twists and turns and surprises you by the end of every single issue. And this is no different, because we had at the end of the last issue, we have our main protagonist, Dylan, who's supposedly in this kind of mental hospital. He's booked himself in an effort to kind of stop himself from killing people. He wants it all kind of stop, and he thinks he's pulling one over on the demon. And I put that in inverted commas because we don't know. We kind of do, but there's still that element that the demon could be real. And he's kind of revealed it, that he has been killing everyone. He did it in this kind of sharing circle, and then everyone laughed at him because there are still killings going on while he's inside, which kind of throws him for a loop. So you get the majority of this book is how the doctors and the psychiatrists deal with Dylan, and kind of bringing into some element of normalcy. Sorry. And that's obviously to do getting him on the drugs, and it makes it very sluggish, but it gives him time to think, and you just get the thought process and how he is worried that the psychiatrists and the doctors, once he's gone through all the medication, told them what they think they want to hear, they will let him back out, and then he will start the killing again, which he doesn't really want. You know, he wants to really put it to the supposed demon that's making him do all this. And then you get that ending where, after all this, he's talked to the doctors, he's talked to the psychiatrists, he's kind of confronted the fact, you know, his father did all this artwork that the demon was portrayed in, and maybe, you know, something in his past triggered these thoughts, and obviously the pictures of all these demons, you know, got to the back of his mind, and he kind of made this story to deal with his kind of mental issues, his mental health issues. However, by the end of this title, the twist comes in, and if we remember, the guy who we shared a house with, who was Kira's boyfriend, but then ex-boyfriend, and she decided to stay with Dylan, finds all the accoutrements of the vigilante Dylan, his ski mask, you know, his guns, all that in the apartment. So, but he doesn't know where Dylan is, so he rings up the mental hospital and asks, you know, how's he doing, when was he admitted, you know, and all this, how's he doing, kind of pretending to be a concerned party. But Dylan only spent 2 days in this mental hospital, and then he kind of signed himself out. What is going on? Just the greatest twist. You know, all this, it's been in his head all the more. And I'm just like, I don't know what to expect every issue I read Kill or Be Killed. The art by Phillips and Breitweiser every week, it's just stunning. The way they kind of throw out all the panels, just make it look interesting to read. It's totally immersive. I just love this title. Who knows how long it's got to go. These kind of books from Brubaker tend to have kind of a limited run, as in he has an ending, but this just seems like it's got no way of stopping, but no sign of stopping. And I, for one, will keep reading this. With the quality that this book is, why are you guys and gals out there not reading it? Black Monday Murders, issue number 8, Jonathan Hickman and Tom Coker. This only missed out on pick of the week because its solicitations are so few and far between. It's not that it's difficult to pick up from where it's been from the last issue, but there is an element, a small element of that. And that's why it didn't quite make pick of the week, because there has been that long break. But every time we get an issue of Black Monday Murders, it doesn't fail to deliver, because it's just such an amazing book. It's dark, it's visceral, it's brutal. The artwork by Tom Coker, just phenomenal in here. There is so much detail in the darkness of this book that you can't help but just gawk at the beautifulness of this book, despite its kind of violent matter. We have the kind of climax to this kind of murder mystery story of the son that was killed, and we find out who the killer was, who the murderer was in this, and the tipping of the scales of the powers of these families that are pulling the strings in the financial world, both internationally and worldwide. And every page of this book, it's just unbelievable. The more I think about it, I should have used this as pick of the week, because it is a fantastic book. And I don't know, I'm presuming there's been a trade so far, so if you do want to pick this book up, then go pick up the trade and catch up with this. This is a book that should never ever be missed. Apart from the fact that you get the kind of the climax to the kind of murder story, and see, there's so many families, the names of them, the Kana Kanklin kind of family, who are pushing their power forward with the use of this dark magic, these kind of alien sigil kind of markings and chanting, almost like an alien language. And they put down the guy who, let's get you a picture, this guy here. Again, it's just like all the names that you have to try and remember and pick up, but he's finally put down, and he's basically put down for good, kind of beheaded, and his heart is eaten, a kind of obviously a symbolic gesture, I guess, or maybe the power within the guy gets transferred into the head woman of the Kanklin family. But that's only the first half of this story. As we kind of skip to the second half, where we've had the detective who's been following the murder, who's basically been finding out all this stuff but getting no closer to who the killer was, but is so immersed now in this world that he just has to keep going with it. And in this issue, it kind of goes one step further, as he goes to speak to the head of the of this family, and she basically kind of almost teases it out of him that, you know, you don't just want answers here anymore, you want to be part of this dark cult, this cabal that is pulling the strings of the world financially. And indeed, he says, look, I'm in now, I want to know it all. And if that wasn't enough, you get, I mean, obviously when you get the Black Monday Murders, you always get these kind of additional kind of maps and histories, and kind of all the names of the families and where they all kind of reside. And some people may say it's all a bit of a filler, but I just think it embellishes and enriches the world we have. But then there is these last few pages of the book where we have the Ackerman family coming back to the fore. One of the young members been hiding out over in where are we, Argentina, but he has been called back, and he obviously has some kind of magical powers within him as well. whenever the next issue comes out, I know it's going to be brilliant again. Hopefully we don't have to wait as long, but this is a superb book, and Jonathan Hickman has created an intriguing, immersive and just addictive book to read. So my pick of the week, if I could have picked one out of these three books, comes from Greg Rucka, and it is the final part of his mini-series Lazarus X+66, part 6 of 6. What a fantastic book. What a fantastic series this has been, delving into the world kind of almost outside of the main families that the main title has focused on, getting glimpses of how this world works. In this issue we deal with, and I've got the Vasilovka family, and its main Lazarus, which is this guy here, the dragon. Now, we have met the dragon in the main title previously, and he is kind of beyond strong, beyond agility, beyond speed. His extra bit on top of that, is basically his grim determination and almost immoral push at getting shit done, basically. And he is merciless with it as well. What we have in this story is this guy, this kind of hunter, who's looking for the dragon to put him down. The dragon has kind of decimated his kind of village, his whole family, and so he's looking for revenge, and he's through his journeys, he's found out where the dragon resides, and he thinks he's going to take him down. But what this book is very much about, and what we've seen elements of in other issues, is how much these people give up to be part of these families. And as I said, we've seen elements in other books, the way they have to live, the way they have to kind of kowtow to the family's rules, just to have a kind of unaffordable living, that they don't become, because you kind of have this tier of kind of a working structure within the Lazarus universe. You have the family, which are like the top tier, and at the bottom you have the waste, which is just the people trying to live day by day, and then you have this kind of middle tier, which are basically all the servanty type, the doctors, the nurses, the people who kind of keep the country running, so to speak, and they are afforded a better lifestyle than those of the waste. And we see, like I said, how much they have to give up of their lives. They have to kind of forget about family members, just to be kind of lifted up from that lower tier of the waste. But this takes it to kind of another level, not only with this kind of hunter guy, who's kind of given up so much of his life to find the dragon and get his vengeance, but what the dragon himself has had to give up. We get his story as a young boy who's weak, he's not as intelligent, or he's not as strong as his siblings, so he's kind of seen as the black sheep of the family. And basically what the family does is farm him off to a science lab to be tested on. The Vasilovka family, they're not really one of the big families. They get all their kind of science stuff, they steal it from other families, they barter it with other families, they make deals, and through kind of all these trial and errors through the scientific kind of manipulations of these people, these bodies that they use to gain their Lazarus, and of course our young weakling becomes the dragon, but to be the dragon he has to give up all his family, and there's the element of his siblings that he loves he has to kill to show his loyalty. And it's just heartbreaking, and you shouldn't really feel it because the dragon is an awful man. He, like I said, he has no mercy about him. He does what needs to be done, and that's why he lives on his own, you know, in this deserted part of the Lazarus universe, hidden away, and only comes out when needed. And just the brutality and the violence of this man, you shouldn't feel for him, but you kind of do. I really enjoyed the art here from Tristan Jones, colours by Santi Arcus. It almost felt like a Conan book. I thought maybe Tristan had done some work on this because it was very similar, but from what I've looked at, it doesn't seem to be the case. But it certainly had that very kind of painted effect. Which maybe the colorist has done it, worked on Conan before, but just these fantastic vistas in this cold, barren land. But I just really dug this issue. As much as I'm saddened to see this go, it does mean obviously the Lazarus main title is coming back, which is great stuff. We'll get more great Michael Lark artwork because, you know, he's had a bit of a rest to allow himself to catch up, which is why we've had this mini-series. But as a whole, this has been a great look at the world of Lazarus and part of that kind of universe that that Greg Rucka has created that we wouldn't normally see or have the chance to kind of embellish and get to know more of it than the kind of structured family story that we have going on in the main title. So brilliant book, go pick it up when it comes out in trade. I'm sure all these 6 stories will be collected in trade, or find the issues singularly. You can drop in at any time because they're all kind of done in one stories. They just happen to take place in the same universe, but fantastic stuff. Oh, what a great week of comics this has been. I hope yours was just as good. Let me know down in the comment section below what were your favourite books of the week. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, and if you're new to my channel, you want to see more of the love of comics that I have, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you to everyone who supports my channel. It's always thoroughly appreciated, and I will see you again very soon. Bye bye.